So tonight we have our lecture on getting supervised in Florida as a final kind of capstone in this course. And I'm delighted that we are able to have an alumni with us this evening, Jonelle, who I will let her introduce herself in a minute, and she can tell you about herself. But she graduated from this program. I don't recall what year now, but I'm sure she will. And since then, she's become licensed as a mental health counselor and has also become a qualified supervisor, which we'll talk about this evening, which is one of the things you need in Florida to gain licensure. So now, I know many of you are not going to stay in the state. I think, in fact, only Jean is going to stay in the state, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Mercedes?
Yeah, I think so.
Think you're going to stay in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes and no. So
Okay.
this is all relative to me.
We, at the end, we have some information about other states,
All right.
but as I've said to you guys, I encourage you to look over the licensure for the various states, and if you bring in the forms, we can look at them together.
All right, my name is Jonelle Dougery. I am graduated in 2003 and spent my 2 years being supervised and got licensed in 2006. So I'm a licensed mental health counselor. After that, I got a certification in addictions as an addictions professional, and recently got certified as a grief counselor. Just added little things onto that. So it is much easier with your license. So I encourage you to wait for all of those things so you have a license. It just makes the coursework for those things easier. Then last year I became a qualified supervisor, so I've supervised a couple of people so far, both of which have passed their licensing exam, so excellent. One had waited to take the exam till the end of her hours, and the other one has chosen to take her exam. She just graduated maybe less than a year ago, so she's already taken her exam prior to finishing her hours. And then some of the things we'll talk about, I know I looked through the presentation. You know, I am a qualified supervisor. If you're interested, I'll give you my information. I left my cards in my car. And I painstakingly brought them with me.
Jean is the only one staying in state maybe that would need supervision, so, yeah.
So,
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the certified addictions professional. Everyone's seen those, the CAP?
the CAPs. There's two levels. There's like the certified addictions professional and then the CAAP, which is like the associate or something. The CAP is the highest, the level of certification. To become a certified addictions professional, it is a lot of coursework. I don't know if they changed it much because, again, I think I did it in 2007, soon after I got licensed. You know, obviously you use them a lot in substance abuse centers. Most people who a lot of people who are in recovery have gone back and become certified addictions professionals and work in those fields. So you can get a lot of experience if you work with them of their own addiction and their journey that they've had with recovery.
Where'd you do that coursework?
I did it. I didn't have to do any coursework. That's the beauty of it, having a license. Once you're licensed with the Florida Certification Board, you just have to take the exam. If you do the coursework, the exam is a written test and an oral test. If you're licensed, it was just a written test. It was not an easy test. It was a very difficult test compared to the licensure exam in the state of Florida. There's a lot of questions of classifying drugs, what are their effects, things that, you know, unless you do that all the time, you don't really know that information. So it was a challenging test, but definitely worth it. It's a nice little added thing. You have to, whereas your licensure you renew every 2 years, that I have to renew every year, and I have to do CEUs for that. That sometimes can, sometimes can double up with my licensure, and sometimes not.
We're just gonna kind of go through it together. All 50 states have licensure for mental health counseling, and California was the last one about a year or two ago. Yeah, so prior to that, what was tough is we had several students who moved to California and couldn't get licensed because it didn't recognize, they were trying to get licensed as marriage and family therapists, but we didn't have a lot of that coursework and whatnot, so finally they added that one. So what I like to say about licensure in Florida is it requires two things, and they're here. One is money, and one is paper. It's a whole lot of paperwork and a whole lot of money to get licensed. So basically, this is your kind of checklist. You graduate. You know, you're going to graduate. You'll register as an intern, okay? And there's paperwork to do that, which I'll show you. and you find a qualified supervisor. Now, what we mean by qualified supervisor is literally somebody with the designation that Jonelle was talking about. It's not somebody who you say, well, they're qualified to supervise me. It's actually a designation by the state, and I'll show you that. And here in Florida, you collect about 1,500 hours in no less than 2 years. And so if you average that out, it comes out to be, let's say it's 150, it's 100 weeks, it's 50 weeks a year, 52 weeks a year. So it's 150, am I doing the math right here?
More or less.
It comes out to 15 hours a week is what it comes out to about in terms of clinical work. So it's hardly full-time, you know, it's very much part-time, yeah. And the reason they have the 2 years here, and in other words, let's say you're working 40, 50 hours a week and you get your hours done, they're still not going to license you for 2 years in Florida because they kind of feel like it's a developmental process. You know, much like school is that you kind of have to go through it. You can't just, you know, work night and day and then they're going to hand it to you. So they give you that 2 years and many people end up having more than enough hours, you know. In Florida, you take this exam, and now is when we start to get into the alphabet soup, National Mental Health Counseling Exam, okay? In other states that you guys are looking at, it might be the NCE, the National Counseling Exam, and that's where I was telling you that's more closely linked to the CPCE, like you take here. So I think that was the case in Washington, D.C., so great, you know, you're kind of already like mirroring that process here. You also have to take an 8 hours laws and rules course.
Which now I hear is almost exclusively online.
Really,
I took in
not
person.
in person.
I took
Okay.
it in person. There is an in-person component to it, which you have to do like via Skype, like you kind of have an interactive session with somebody at the end. But I took it as I went to someone's home, they had a program in their house, which I thought I was in the wrong, Rosie and I actually. And we sat in their living room for 8 hours with some other people waiting to get licensed, and we looked at their dishes and their plants and all their stuff.
Okay.
And this is more application, right? Like, it's not.
It's more just get information. They're gonna tell you a lot about
Yeah.
That one I would have to take.
Yeah.
You have to take.
Yeah, and NC.
Oh, okay. You have to have
In
that
your
requirement as
state, in
well.
your state, yeah. We're just gonna kind of go through it together. All 50 states have licensure for mental health counseling, and California was the last one about a year or two ago. Yeah, so prior to that, what was tough is we had several students who moved to California and couldn't get licensed because it didn't recognize, they were trying to get licensed as marriage and family therapists, but we didn't have a lot of that coursework and whatnot, so finally they added that one. So what I like to say about licensure in Florida is it requires two things, and they're here. One is money, and one is paper. It's a whole lot of paperwork and a whole lot of money to get licensed. So basically, this is your kind of checklist. You graduate, you know, you're going to graduate. You'll register as an intern, okay, and there's paperwork to do that, which I'll show you. And you find a qualified supervisor. Now, what we mean by qualified supervisor is literally somebody with the designation that Jonelle was talking about. It's not somebody who you say, well, they're qualified to supervise me. It's actually a designation by the state, and I'll show you that. And here in Florida, you collect about 1,500 hours in no less than 2 years. And so if you average that out, it comes out to be, let's say it's 150, it's 100 weeks, it's 50 weeks a year, 52 weeks a year. So it's 150, am I doing the math right here?
More or less.
It comes out to 15 hours a week is what it comes out to about in terms of clinical work. So it's hardly full-time, you know, it's very much part-time, yeah. And the reason they have the 2 years here, and in other words, let's say you're working 40, 50 hours a week and you get your hours done, they're still not going to license you for 2 years in Florida because they kind of feel like it's a developmental process. You know, much like school is that you kind of have to go through it. You can't just, you know, work night and day and then they're going to hand it to you. So they give you that 2 years, and many people end up having more than enough hours, you know. In Florida, you take this exam, and now is when we start to get into the alphabet soup, National Mental Health Counseling Exam, okay? In other states that you guys are looking at, it might be the the NCE, the National Counseling Exam, and that's where I was telling you that's more closely linked to the CPCE, like you take here. So I think that was the case in Washington DC, so great, you know, you're kind of already like mirroring that process here. You also have to take an 8 hours laws and rules course.
Which now I hear is almost exclusively online.
Really,
I took it in
not
person. I took
Okay.
it in person. There is an in-person component to it, which you have to do like via Skype, like you kind of have an interactive session with somebody at the end. But I took it as I went to someone's home, they had a program in their house, which I thought I was in the wrong neighborhood, Rosie and I actually. And we sat in their living room for 8 hours with some other people waiting to get licensed, and we looked at their dishes and their plants and all their stuff.
Oh, wow, okay.
And this is more application, right? Like, it's not.
It's more just get information. They're gonna tell you a lot about
Yeah.
That one I would have to take.
Yeah.
You have the same.
Yeah, NNC.
Oh, okay. You have.
Well, it's an exam where you just have to take the course. Just the
That's what I'm
course.
saying. Is
Yeah.
the course
It's
a
a
part
course.
of the
It's a
exam, or
course.
is it like a
No,
full
it's a
exam?
separate course.
Oh, okay.
When I was licensed back in the prehistoric times, we actually had to take a test on that. So I didn't take a course, I just went and took an exam on the Florida
Oh,
laws.
right.
So I had to study them and learn them.
Right.
Now they're basically saying, sit through the 8 hour course and you're okay. So it's better.
Yeah.
Well, it's an exam where you just have to take the course. Just the
That's what I'm
course.
saying. Is
Yeah.
the course
It's
a
a
part of
course.
the
It's a
exam, or
course.
is it like a full
No,
exam?
it's a separate course.
Oh, okay.
When I was licensed back in the prehistoric times, we actually had to take a test on that. So I didn't take a course, I just went and took an exam on the Florida
right.
laws. So I had to study them and learn them.
Right.
Now they're basically saying, sit through the 8 hour course and you're okay. So it's better.
Yeah.
All right. 5 seconds.
I told you my son said we have to buy one of each box so we can tell people about them. You know, he's like, how can we sell them without saying?
That is so good.
And then a 2 hour prevention of medical errors course.
Now you take when you renew your license, you have to, that's a requirement, so
Every
2 years.
Everybody,
Oh.
yeah.
The prevention one.
Now, that's more important, in my opinion, in a medical
It
field.
is.
It's very irrelevant.
it's super irrelevant to us.
You do
It is very irrelevant. It
Yeah.
is, and it talks about, it's record keeping, a little bit of record keeping. A lot of it talks about writing clearly and medical doses and dosage of medication. It's very irrelevant to us.
Some of these
but-
medications are so similar in name, but they mean different things. So that if the physician writes it with one letter wrong, the person could be put on a,
Mhm.
completely different, gene.
So we just take the 8 hour laws and rules course at once? Like,
Yes, one.
It's a one-time thing,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad. I would,
Yeah.
honestly, I wouldn't mind not taking it. I don't know, 8 hour course again,
Right,
but
so
being
we're
refreshed
sure.
on it because the laws are
Yeah.
gonna
I
change.
feel like that's
Exactly.
more relevant to us than.
When you do
Being
read the Florida
medical.
statutes about, Florida statutes and laws are different, but when you read the Florida statutes, they're very vague. There's very little information, so it is kind of nice to have a little more in-depth information. I had a big binder and had all the stuff in it. I know probably a lot of it's irrelevant now. I don't even know if I used to have it. It's have all that
It
stuff.
should be a.
But it really should be something that you refresh, to be, in my opinion.
You should do that yourself then,
Yeah.
to stay confident.
Yeah, and I looked through, like recently, I looked a lot through the ACA standards,
Ethical
guidelines,
guidelines, yeah.
ethical guidelines.
At the end of those 2 years, because remember you can't complete it in more than 2 years, you send in this paperwork and your supervisor sends in verification that you completed your hours. Now, in order to even begin gathering hours in Florida, you have to have a qualified supervisor send in a letter to the state on letterhead.
They changed it.
So they
That's a
changed
letterhead.
it.
I just sent it in on a regular letter. I faxed
Okay,
it.
all right, but
There's
it's
a
letter.
cover sheet. There's
Yeah.
something that you guys do as a register, when you register, that
Mhm.
generates like this cover sheet. And it has like your name and like a control number, so I guess they match it up. Attach that, I type a letter, or they type it for me, I sign
Yeah.
it, a letter that says I'm the qualified supervisor, this is my information, and it gets sent. Not till you get verification back from the state can you start counting your hours.
Yeah. And why they did it, in years past, the person just had to list the qualified supervisor's name.
Mhm.
And I
It was
think
a
what
form. I
happened,
did
it
a
was a
form.
form. And I think what happened is people were just putting somebody down. So now they're sort of saying, Jonelle, are you really supervising, Alicia? Are you, we need to see that from you.
Mhm.
The student's putting it down, but so that's where that kind of level of. So for us here, to be licensed, you have to have a master's degree. You see that it has to be K-CREP or equivalent. So for us, we're taken care of, we come from a K-CREP program, has to have at least 60 semester hours, including a course in human sexuality and a course in substance abuse, because those are not part of the K-CREP standards. So that's why they add those 2 courses in Florida, those aren't in K-CREP. And if they're not, you have to demonstrate. If you're not a K-CREP, you have to demonstrate equivalency. So this is the alternate way. So what this sort of shows you here is if you're not from K-CREP, these are all the content areas, and if you look at it, this is our program, right? So it's counseling theories, human growth, diagnosis, treatment, human sexuality, group theories, individual evaluation, career, it's everything we do, basically. So you don't need that. One good thing is that Florida has a really high standard. So when you typically move to another state, as I mentioned to you, you usually meet the criteria because Florida tends to exceed other states. So you'll probably do okay. As I said, sometimes when people come here, they haven't taken a course and they need to take it to be
You find that a
licensed.
lot, actually.
And they're just picking up a course, and then you have to do 1,000 hours of a university-sponsored internship, which again, is why we're here. It's what we're all doing. So to secure the qualified supervisor, you go to this website, look up a licensee, and I'll send you these slides, and then they submit the letter like we just talked about. Find a job is step 2, just cross that off. And then register as a registered mental health intern. This is the website. Okay, so when you go to that website, you get this search function, and I know it's very hard to see here, and I couldn't make it any bigger. I guess we could go right to the web. You type the person's name in. So what would be important to do is if you get a job somewhere and they say to you, well, I'm a qualified supervisor, check them out. And actually, I would encourage you, how about as a little homework assignment, everybody look up their supervisor. Frankie will be qualified because Frankie was in the class, but you'll be able to see how the person appears. And again, this is only good for Florida, but you enter their name, and so what I did was show you my example. I entered my name, and you can see, oh gosh, darn it, you can't see anything. I wanted to make this bigger.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So you see my license number there, and you see a couple things. You see what I am, profession, the licensee, the activity status, clear and active. That means there's been no judgments against me, against my license. Sometimes that has something else there. Seriously, and you might find that, if you notice my qualifications say what? Qualified supervisor, mental health counseling. I'm qualified for mental health counseling, you're only mental
You'll
health.
find some older social workers who are LCSWs who are qualified to supervise everybody. But now, that was a huge political thing, I think, for a long time, that LCSWs could supervise everybody, but we could only supervise our own
discipline.
type, our own discipline. So it became, well, they're trained differently than we are.
Right.
So there's a lot of, now the standards are different, but I think there was a group of people who grandfathered into that.
Yeah.
Because both my supervisors were LCSWs.
Mhm. Yeah.
One of my supervisors is
Yeah.
social worker.
Well, my
She's social
qualified
worker.
supervisors,
Did you look-
like the people,
Yeah,
I got my
Nancy's
license.
social worker, but the other clinical director, he's mental health. So usually I work with him, like as
Yeah.
far as when I have my meetings.
Yeah, but my qualified supervisors were both LCSWs. I had 2, because I moved positions, and I changed.
You can actually have up to, I think, 3.
Yeah,
You can change
it was
yeah.
really.
It'll give you the person's expiration date. You see that my license expires later this year, which again is a standard. Psychologists expire in May,
Or
mental
April.
health is April, so it's always the same 2-year cycle. The original license date, you can see, so right there you can kind of judge maybe how old somebody is, or in this case, how young somebody is. Discipline on file, none, I'm happy to report, and public complaint, no, but you will see that those will say yes. See the little box next to it with the question mark? If you clicked on that, it'll give you a description of what those words mean, that they give you a definition of them. And we did have a supervisor, we had a site we used to use, and the supervisor had several complaints against her, and so, didn't mean, again, you can get a complaint, it can be unfounded, but you kind of want to see a profile like that, right? I mean, it's better just not to have, so, so that's how you can look everybody up, and I would encourage you again to, just play around with it a little bit, enter some people in, and you'll see what you get. This is the application, this is the form that you would have to fill out in Florida. And, you know, just go through it, so I can give you the website for that. Right here is, if you're from a K-CREP program, you don't have to fill in all of those things, because it's understood that you got that in the program. See what I mean by a lot of,
Yeah, I had to fill it out, even though we were, well,
yeah, I think we were just getting
Yeah.
K-CREP then, 2003. So here's, I mentioned the paperwork part, now here's the financial part. So this is just to register.
but one of my supervisors, okay, she works for an agency, they don't have a qualified supervisor, so she has her, technically, she go back and ask for her timesheets and when she met, you know, so there is ways
Yeah,
of
you can
tracking
get
it.
charts and stuff.
But I mean, really, you know, as a professional licensed person, I'm not gonna sign off on something where I
Right.
haven't seen, you know,
Exactly.
and some people would, I'm sure, but
But
I'm,
you
you
could
know.
you could get into a, my husband had a situation where he got into a conflict with the supervisor. And the guy wanted to keep him on longer and have him do more hours and started to say, I'm not counting that as an hour, I'm not counting, you know, and so then it was nice that he had this kind of record that said,
Yeah.
look, you know. So we don't want that to happen,
No, of
but,
course.
or, God forbid, something happened to your supervisor.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
the state would have to make arrangements, but you
Oh,
would
yeah.
have this log, you know, that you had done all these hours. Yeah, I like to think of the,
Anyway, but just wanted to know if we needed to like send our.
yeah, no,
like every hour,
yeah, wrote out.
No, it's not like a.
They kind of, you absolutely,
Yeah, I've done that. Oh, my God.
yeah, right, you got her those days.
Right, I could do that.
And you'll learn that that's essentially what happens in the real world, is a lot of things become very much, you're on your own to be reporting and to be ethical. You have to be supervised until you're licensed, so, you know, it doesn't matter. You gotta continue to have that supervision, you know, if it takes you more than 2 years, then it takes you more than 2 years.
Well, even if you pass the exam,
Mhm.
you still have to send in your paperwork, everything has to be approved for the supervision to end, because now you're licensed. But until then, you're technically still practicing without a license.
Right, it says until your receipt of the license.
Receipt.
You
Oh,
literally
got it.
have it in your
You
hand.
have to get it in your hands.
You gotta have it in your, yeah. So we mentioned the 2 years is under the supervisor. It has to be 1,500 hours providing face-to-face, which we already kind of know what that is. It accrued in no less than 100 weeks. You have to have at least 1 hour of supervision every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
At least 1 hour of supervision per 15 hours of psychotherapy, and again, we said it would be about 15 hours a week. And if it's group supervision, you have to alternate,
Mhm.
1 week group and one,
Individual.
yeah, and group can be,
I think up to 6.
yeah, up to 6. And individual can be 2.
Oh, okay.
So actually, you could split the hour
Cost
with
if you
someone.
have to.
Yeah, and split the cost with someone, yeah. And if you do a group every other week, you're splitting the cost with, you know, a couple, 6 people, so.
Let's just talk about it.
Stay right here. Just right here.
I'll say two. We'll just say two, we'll just talk.
Right.
Go ahead and we'll.
Then
Got it on price.
So you ready?
You're having a hard time, let me go. If you don't finish in the 2 years, so let's say you're working at a very, very part-time rate, you know, you're doing something else and you can renew your registered intern thing, but for $75.
Thank you.
It actually happened to me because at the time I took the paper pencil test, I couldn't finish the hours in enough time to register for the test. Well, like my hours were done, but it wasn't gonna get to them with enough time for me to take the next available test.
Yeah, so technically.
So I had to renew in order to
Take
to take the.
seriously over this, I mean, really.
He was meant to get a cable, which I think was.
Yeah,
gonna
he
fix
was
that.
He did, okay, because really, I mean, we do better downstairs with our little setup, right?
It's probably set to go to sleep like every 1 or 2.
No, he put it for like 5 hours,
Oh, but
but it's bumping, it's like something with the wireless, I think.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be smart cord.
Yeah, the wireless is probably.
Well, the next section is about the National Clinical Mental Health Examination. So I have some sample questions and stuff, but while we're waiting for that, maybe you can, did you look up what Kentucky is? Is it
Oh, Tennessee?
Tennessee?
Yeah, it's 3,000 hours
But is it, which exam?
with NC and MA.
Both of them?
Both of them.
Oh,
Okay.
you have to take both? Ooh.
Wow.
So maybe you can tell them a little bit about the national.
They would be growing.
Okay, again, I took the last paper pencil one, so I had to go sit in this big room with this little Leighton pen and do this. It's very nice now, you go into the little center. You can, I think you can take it pretty much whenever, it's available almost every day.
Yeah, it's like I think I have it in
You
the
go to a testing center, it's in
first 2
draft.
weeks of the month or something, but yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's pretty much available. If you don't pass it, you have to wait 30 full days for you to take it again. But it is honestly probably one of the funnest tests you'll ever take. And I know that sounds like it makes no sense.
At all.
But it's
Fun.
fun.
Right.
It is a fun.
Janelle's been
exam.
on, Janelle's.
The NCE or the NMHCE?
NCMHCE.
The whole alphabet.
Jeez,
The
almighty.
alphabet.
It is, it's like telling you a story. You get a little bit of information. You know, you do information gathering, you have to diagnose, you have to treatment plan, you have to, what else do you do?
Pick assessments.
Yep, assessments, which that's a little bit challenging because some of those things are things you've never heard of.
That's a terrible
Oh,
background.
wow. Why did I get that? Oh.
That was the background I chose.
So basically it's a vignette. So you're gonna read a little, it's gonna tell you a little bit about a story, and then it's gonna ask you a question. What assessment questions, or what information gathering basically is what they're looking for. What things would you ask this client? So you have a question?
I have a
Oh, okay.
sample, yeah. But it came out very,
Okay, so this is a diagnosis. Oh no, what's it say during the first session, what
So
information?
you're a clinician in
Yes.
private practice, Miss Jackson, age 34, comes to her first appointment complaining that she just isn't happy. She reports that she's been divorced for about 4 years, her father passed away 8 months ago, she's got a full-time job, but for the last 2 or 3 years, she feels like she's just been going through the motions at work. She reports that she misses her father. During the first session, what information would be important to assess to formulate a provisional, this says DSM-4, it's just saying 5 now. So select as many as you would consider.
So,
Then you can do this, because I have the scoring on the next page, so if you want to jot it down, would you assess her sleep patterns, would you assess her appetite, would you,
ask her about her.
so 1 through 12, which ones of those would you?
Can we just select like a couple of?
Yeah, which ones would you assess for her?
Oh,
I wonder if I should change the background.
Yeah, maybe. It looked good when it was on the airplane, but it's with that, for whatever reason.
Is that the design, or?
Yeah, because look, it's this little circle here, see inside there? There's like a circle that's like a moon, shadowy.
Probably I know, it's just a hot mess. So remember, she's not happy, she's
Going through the motion.
going through the motions at work, lost her father 8 months ago. So it just means which one of these things would you kind of, what would you need to know to make a diagnosis?
Oh, no. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, it showed on yours, but not there.
You got it? Did you guys do it, or you,
So,
okay,
sure.
so here's the answers. If you selected the first one, which was sleeping, you'd get 2 points for that. Because remember, one of the DSM criteria is sleep. Remember SIGI caps for
Right.
major depression, so
Mhm.
sleeping. Then, number 2 would have been a good one to pick. What was that,
And I gotta look because
Um,
the appetite.
So that, you're gonna get 2 points
Because
for.
again, that goes with the
That goes with
depression.
the- But number 3,
Number 3, which was 5-year employment goals.
don't need that.
Yeah.
So they're gonna take 2 points
from
away.
it.
Because here's the
I see.
thing, they're also sort of saying, don't be unnecessary, you
Mhm.
know, like, sure, we could ask people everything about themselves and get, you know.
But how long will that assessment truly take?
Yeah, and how annoyed will the client be at the end of it? So, you know, we want to be concise, we want to do what we need to do, and then so on. So you can kind of go through this and look and get
But
all.
here's the important part. So as you see there, it says, okay, she states she's often has a poor time sleeping, so her appetite's normal. The other things are not indicated. You're gonna get a little med saying, not indicated, not indicated. It's not gonna say plus or minus, it's not gonna tell you your points.
Which is pretty much got it wrong.
Yeah, and you can get a negative one not indicated. Look, there's -3 not indicated. But the important part of passing the licensure exam, in my opinion,
Yeah, yeah. I was just
okay,
looking at
is that you have to read and remember these things. She states that she has a few friends that she occasionally sees. Those are important things in making a diagnosis. These are where you're gonna have those difference between dysthymia and major depression with the time frames. She's been months that she's been depressed, or it's been 3 weeks or something. So these are parts of the story that help you, because this vignette builds upon itself. So you need these parts of it to answer the next questions and to perform and to create that diagnosis. So if you kind of go, oh, okay, great, I'm happy with myself, I'm just not happy with my life. You know, that's only one point, but that may be she can't concentrate. Those are important things
in the next,
in the subsequent parts of it, because all those things build upon. When I took the paper pencil, I could go back and I could add, but you can't do that on the computer one. So I knew, oh, wait a minute, it said this later in the vignette. Oh, so I went back and I would highlight the little thingy, and
So
I
the
could
whole
get more
test
points.
is pretty much based on one
It's
case.
10
with
vignettes.
different-
several cases.
Yeah, I think
10,
it's 10 different vignettes.
Okay.
Just
Or-
like this.
Yeah, more or less like
These are the samples
Are
they
these
gave
from-
on the website or something.
from
yeah.
the counseling exam.
I think I'm excited to take this.
Me too.
I'm telling you, I told you, it's fun. I was like, oh, this is so much fun.
Well,
Because
yeah,
I
I
wanted
wanted
5
5
points right
Yeah,
now.
I
It's
wanted
pretty good.
Yeah.
Look at the content.
This is like application.
Cares about Holland's theories.
You look it up, you
I
can
know.
go there for that. So that's what's important. The other thing about the exam, I mean, there's none here with 0. You cannot pass the exam, not because you got too many incorrect, but because you didn't gain enough points. Remember, it's not a passing score, you have to reach a certain level score. So if you have to gain 50 points and you only pick poor appetite and number 11, she says she's okay. That's only 3 points, when really you could have had 3, 6, 8,
Yeah. Potentially.
10, 12
on
points.
this, yeah.
So if you only pick 4, you've missed 8 points.
But if you pick too many, you lose.
If you start going crazy and you get negative, you're gonna negate some of you're gonna negate some of your score.
And number 9, I looked up what that was, because that was the biggest -3. That was relationship with supervisor at
Yeah.
work. Think about it. You don't need that to diagnose depression, so they're
Right.
saying, don't
Yeah.
waste your time with that, you know. So that was one, and these are
These are just more challenging because we don't work with these a lot.
yeah, what initial assessment instruments, so go back to measurement and appraisal maybe, would be appropriate for formulating a provisional diagnosis and developing? Select as many as you consider, so the geriatric depression scale,
She's only 30,
she's
35,
30.
34?
Yeah,
She's 34.
Self-directed search, isn't that for vocational?
Yeah, so that's a career counseling one.
So let's not take that. The MMPI,
Which we're not qualified to.
Oh, no.
no, and it's also 365
Yes.
questions.
We're not qualified to give it.
So bad.
And then we need to give her an IQ test?
No,
I
the DISC is
I think she don't even know what
the,
the disc
don't even
is.
know what that is.
You'll spend a lot of time Googling some of these things once you take these practice things, because you really, honestly, we don't learn about all of them.
And
the
personality
yeah, I don't know that we need that, well, and
Yeah,
also,
unless,
you certainly wouldn't give 2, so you're
Right, so you
definitely not gonna pick 3
Yeah,
and
so
7.
Exactly.
exactly.
So let's see what they said, not indicated, 3 was,
Wait, I can read
that
it for you.
was, they said the MMPI.
Oh, they did
Okay.
say.
Which I don't
Well,
think
yeah,
we're
we're not.
We're not qualified to give that,
But it
because of
doesn't-
level.
But I guess it doesn't.
Would you refer them to someone that
To
would?
give
Oh,
it,
maybe.
that could give
You
back.
got 2 points for the back depression inventory,
Yes,
so that was.
And then if we.
And then look at the personality assessment
inventory.
inventory.
So we could have got 4. We could have
Yeah.
got 4. We could have got 6.
They did like all of them.
If you're gonna get this on every question, every vignette's gonna have something about assessment, because
So 3,
Yeah,
5,
and 7.
7. Oh, so
Oh, we would've
personality.
been good. I know.
Well, look at
Dr.
that.
King,
Yeah,
you have
3,
some
5,
smart
and
students
7.
in here.
Go ahead, give it your
Bring it on! Let's get an all-night testing center and go. Grab a couple cans of Red Bull and head over there, right? process, which I just like to say that word, that's something you wanna throw that out of the cocktail party, like, I bifurcated the licensure process. It just means you break it up, so that's what Joe said, the gal took the test right away. She can't be licensed yet, she still has to accrue
Oh,
for
yeah.
2 years, but
Oh,
she's
she took the
done.
test, she passed it, but now she has to.
Now
Because
she's
sometimes, I couldn't take the exam till I
So
was
you
done with my
couldn't.
hours.
They made
Not
you
even
finish out.
the 2 hours, the 2 years, I have to be
Find
done
out
with
what
my
you see.
hours.
Now, the beauty of this is, if you don't pass it, which won't happen to anyone here, but if you don't,
Absolutely not.
you can still take it again within your 2-year period and you're not losing any
Yeah.
time. So I did it this way too. I graduated in August, I took the exam in October, and I thought, in those days, they only offered it twice a year.
Yeah.
So I was gonna have to wait 6 months anyway, so I thought, let me take it and
October,
then.
April.
Yeah, October,
Oh,
April,
that's
and I
it.
had to go up to like,
I went up to-
Orlando.
No, I did it here, Broward, I think.
So it's kind of good to get it done early because the stuff's still sort of fresh in your mind. And again, you have, if something happens, you have to take it again. You've got that practice of having, there's no limit to the times you can take the license exam. It's just
That's
how
how
deep
you
your
wait
pockets
30
are.
days.
It's just that renewal fee.
So you get,
Oh, yeah,
so
you have to
wait.
pay $75.
Okay, so you have to wait 30 days in between.
Yeah, 30
In
days
between.
between.
And you have to take it.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to this.
There we go, 3, no,
Yeah.
3 months.
3
I
months.
thought it was
3
30
months.
days, 3 months. I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
30 months.
After you register with the state and become a registered intern and everything's okay with them and they get your paperwork, in Florida, what they do is they send you a postcard, they said, so I put up that Florida postcard. They send you a postcard which basically tells you how to take the exam. And it tells you, how to locate a testing center. And it's
Well, you
offered
go
the
online and
first
you
2
do it.
weeks on a first come, first.
Yeah.
So
you
what
make
they
an
told
appointment
me is
online.
make an appointment and like, they might all be taken up, so you get it the next month, you know what I mean? So get in early, and then you gotta wait 3 months.
Yeah, that's good. if you don't
That's,
pass.
well, they figure, you know what,
Yeah,
you
you
gotta go
study.
back and study, so.
Right.
This is the laws and rules, you mentioned that you took the class, I don't know if anything stood out, or they just kind of reviewed it?
They reviewed stuff, you asked questions, some ethical things, and even those laws and rules are kind of just nothing, I mean. it
Cover
was-
child abuse reporting.
Yeah, like mandatory reporting, like what you needed to be licensed, and nothing that I can say.
Confidentiality probably.
Yeah. Oh, and some record keeping and what you do. You
How
gotta
long
talk
do you keep
about
your
that.
records for?
7 years, right?
We had that last week, I guess.
Unless, or until they're 18.
And then after.
And then-
So you get the 2-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold
You're
on to
gonna hold
those,
for
right,
a long
forever.
time.
Yeah.
Years
You-
plus
you
the
can't-
7 after.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you
those
can-
are things you remember now, but you won't remember.
Right.
So,
We had to
like, you
refer
have to
back.
be able to look them up, because we had a whole thing about reporting teenage pregnancy, and I couldn't remember any of the rules about that. I was like, oh, dear.
Yeah, there are.
I mean, it's just some of those things that you just don't come across very often.
Right.
And then when you come across them, you're like, what was that again?
Yeah, it used to be that, a teenager could seek treatment under crisis counseling without parental consent if it was considered a crisis. And they had to be 13 and older, which to me was just reeking of that they were pregnant, that's
Yeah,
what
right.
the law was created.
Right.
And it couldn't be for a period longer than like 2 months or something. So that's again one of those nitty gritty, like even when people ask me, I have to look at that.
Yeah,
It's
it's just strange.
too many. The medical errors, this is what it says, really what this comes from is all the medical errors that are made, like you read stories about the wrong leg got amputated in a hospital, or
The medication administered
Got the wrong
incorrectly,
dose.
double the
Right.
amount of medication that's supposed to be given. It's really for nurses, psychiatrists, medical doctors in the
there's
field.
not, there's not a lot we can do to really cause a fatal, problem with people.
With Medicaid, we don't prescribe anything.
Right, so you can't go wrong with that. I guess you could write your notes sloppy and people couldn't read them, but I remember years ago when my mother was in the hospital for pneumonia, she'd been hospitalized and they were taking her for physical therapy. And she was a registered nurse by, trade, and she sort of said, I don't really feel that good. You sure I should be going down to physical therapy? And they said, no, we got the doctor's orders here, And she said, all right, but I think I should be in bed. I'm heavily medicated, and I don't feel good, I'm supposed to be resting, but, she went along and then she started to question it some more. It turned out there was somebody by the exact same name in the hospital who was there for rehabilitation. And they were bringing the wrong person down for,
Well, she got some physical therapy.
Right.
so that, yeah, that wasn't life-threatening, but those are the kinds of things that happen, and so that's the sort of, those are the medical errors they're talking
Yeah.
about.
And this is online, you take this online, you can buy a little package deal of medical errors,
Laws and rules,
HIV.
yeah, HIV.
Well, I don't know about laws and rules, but HIV and domestic
Yes.
violence for, they give you like a little, I wish I brought, I can send you the websites, I've researched greatly because I pay for this out of my own pocket. Cause sometimes they're like, well, it's $20 per CEU, which is 3 CEUs, so it's like, or 2, so it's at 14, no, so I buy like $45 for all.
Oh, no,
The whole shebang.
Right.
That's my kind of people.
I like the unlimited offers,
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll have to do it, but you'll find that it's not as applicable to our.
Yeah.
So here's the one I put, like, hospital medical errors kill 98,000. Who did? What the?
My bad.
Uh-oh. That comes from the operating room.
Right, the operating room.
That's cute.
Dang it. So now comes the money again. I just remember that our board in Florida is, yeah. You're gonna earn it all back though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's everything in abundance.
Janelle's earning potential based on her FIU degrees. So we're all under the same board. Social work, marriage and family, and mental health are under the same board in Florida, but I just highlighted mental health. So it's $100. Now this is after you already did the registered intern. So it's $100 application fee.
How much is it to register as an intern?
150.
150.
So you're talking
And then-
355 total.
Now
And
105.
hopefully you don't have to.
105 for your first license, and for a total of 205, yeah.
Oh, the joy.
And then I forget how it works to renew, because I got
And then how
licensed in
much?
2006, I had to renew.
Did they give you a first
There.
period?
Yeah, you
That's
did
not
maybe.
the test cost,
That's
right?
No, that's not the test.
No, that's not the test.
Yeah, no,
But you're paying somebody else for that.
It's not.
Yeah, how much
Right.
was the test?
This is the application.
I don't remember. They changed it because
$100.
when I took it again, I had to sit in a room with 50 other people taking the exam. Now it's on the computer.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
like
$200 for the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
How much do you charge for supervision?
Yeah.
What are your rates like?
My rates are $30 an hour. I have very good rates compared to some people, but right now I'm charging good.
And what if two people came?
Are you paid 30?
Yeah, they each pay.
That's
Yeah,
what
okay,
of
yeah.
the average of her.
The thing about being a qualified supervisor is Janelle's responsible for everyone's behavior. So if one of your supervisees makes an error or does something wrong, it's her license.
You're practicing on.
Right. Oh, and then that would be tricky when they're working at a different place. Then
That's why, I do a lot of discussion about agency policy and how do you feel, about that, because sometimes the agency policy will protect the person, which kind of in turn then kind of protects me because, it depends on, but
They're kind of employed
if it's
there.
employed there, if it's something completely, but I do have a supervisee who's looking to practice independently, privately,
Right.
without being licensed yet, which we had discussion, we didn't know people pay for that, but I guess they do. So in that case,
Something like,
well, that was for me, I didn't
even think you could do
I didn't know you could do that. There are a lot of limitations, you have to practice in the same office as a licensed person, even though they may not be your clinical supervisor. So that kind of really puts a lot more responsibility on me now because this person may be practicing independently, which means I should be reviewing case notes with the limits of confidentiality, like what's, is she documenting, how are you keeping your files,
Right.
those kinds of things. So,
Right?
So I always consider that in the fee I would charge
Yeah.
to be a qualified supervisor is essentially, I'm taking on a lot of risk because all 20 patients that you're seeing, all 15 that Jean's seeing, they're all mine now, ultimately. So there's a lot of, I think it's important to be selective as a qualified supervisor. So people would call me and I wasn't just gonna take them on, I wanted some sort of it was a friend's friend, I wanted to know where they'd been trained, I wanted to, that kind of
and you
thing.
get a sense right away, I don't have to continue, I can say, you know what,
Yeah.
this is
Not comfortable with
not
what you're
comfortable
doing,
with
yeah.
what you're doing, I'm gonna, send a letter terminating supervision to the state, which I can do just as easily as I send the one saying, I agree to be
It's
your
not like once you
supervisor.
agree, then,
No.
you're stuck.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing on your part, as the
Yeah.
supervisee, you can say, I don't feel like I'm getting out of supervision what I like, this is not what I'm looking for, or you're not available, whatever.
Yeah, or I'm moving to another part of town, and it's,
Oh,
I'm found somebody I
Yeah,
can split it with over there, that's okay.
But you can still keep your hours that you earned.
Yes,
Keep
and
you
then
right,
there's a paper that you sign at the end, and I say, okay, I supervise
Under
person
me,
for
whether-
500 hours, and I sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my last supervisee, I only did her last 250 hours, more or less.
Okay.
So she had someone sign the first one, and I signed the second.
Within 6 months of being licensed, do you have to do a 3-hour HIV course? How did you do that?
Online, that's all online. Again, it's like a little packet you can buy, these two courses together usually are loans.
Domestic violence.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then these are also, HIV I don't think you have to do for renewal, but domestic violence you have to do every 4 years. Every two
Third
renewals or
biennial.
something.
We get reminders, like, who's?
No.
Joint CE broker,
You
no.
have to keep.
My best invest in the CE broker
Because
and let them
they-
keep track of things for you. It's
Oh,
wonderful.
okay.
It's not that much, it's a
Yeah,
great.
can you maybe we can log on to yours, I don't
Sure.
have my password, but,
Yeah, I can-
yeah, see,
Right, 'cause I'm
the-
not remember.
However,
I can't.
only Florida uses
Only
CE
Florida
broker,
uses
and
CE
I think
so-
Washington DC.
Yeah, they have, you can look, it tells you.
So
Yeah.
I hope-
No, you're gonna have to.
And let me tell you, they
Y'all
used to.
are out of luck.
Don't forget
Yeah,
me.
sorry.
Just being
Tennessee, you better just keep track of them.
Yeah,
just be one fan.
I mean, when you take a CEU, you get a certificate.
Right.
I keep a folder of all my
Yeah.
certificates.
Yeah.
You know, I never get rid of anything, because I have yet to be questioned, especially with CAP, because you don't know, they can always come back and say, we need proof of this year that you did your CEUs.
I've been audited.
I've been audited
Yeah.
for CAP, I've never been,
I was
well, with
audited
CE
by the
broker
state,
now,
yeah.
they you're
There's-
self-audited, not self-audited, but
They
they
can
are.
run an analysis through the
Exactly.
system, but I was audited once, and they give you 30 days to send all the papers to them, and that was it. It's like Jonelle, I had a folder, I copied them, sent them in, thanks very much, have a good day, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty.
The other thing is you keep the paper that you get, but the place, like here in our department, we're a CE provider. The counseling program is a CE provider. When people come to CEs, and Jonelle's come to some, let's say I remembered going somewhere, but I can't find that certificate, but I say to myself, I know I went to FIU last February, and I went to a workshop on domestic violence. You could call me, and I have to keep it on file for you. So the place that you got it from has a 2-year reporting period as well. So, we're required as a provider to keep certain records as well, and so you could kind of get, go back to them and say, generate me another certificate or something. We have to keep sign-ins and logs and whatnot, but CE Broker will log onto it, it makes it very
No, it's
easy.
very, very easy, because when I do a training here, it gets uploaded from FIU
Automatically,
directly to CE
yeah.
Broker. So I can log on, show you, mine
Yeah.
just renewed, so mine's like.
And that's the nice thing, I just went to one too on the DSM-5, and I took the certificate home, but a week later it appeared in my CE Broker, I didn't even have to, it was there for me. Domestic violence became a mandatory CE after the O.J. Simpson case. Yeah, absolutely. After that, all mental health providers were required to undergo routine domestic violence training. So that was an interesting outcome of that case. Every 2 years, you renew and you pay $150.
Oh.
Rala, we haven't even gotten into malpractice
Oh, yeah.
insurance and
Oh,
everything.
so we just ACA
with the
student.
insurance.
You can't keep
Can we
doing
just write
things.
that
Yeah.
insurance student? So that thing is great.
Because right now, we have the insurance through ACA students. As a registered intern, do we still keep
It
this?
depends on
Student,
you,
or do
no,
we now
you have to
do
have a professional.
The,
I mean, if you work for an
Yeah.
agency, then they'll
Okay.
cover you under their,
Okay.
theirs. If you're gonna practice privately, or you're gonna
you
just
have to go.
piecework, or, maybe piecework would still be covered under that agency. But, it's not really that much,
It's not
it's HTSO, right?
Those chances are.
Right.
It's not crazy, but it all adds up,
Oh, yeah, so it all adds up.
Also, What was I gonna say about the license?
They
They don't mess around with that either. That's one of the things that they send you a postcard or an email reminder of, and you don't wanna be late paying that, cause guess what, then there's a late fee.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
That is the late fee.
Double probably.
No, I don't remember, I've never been late.
But, yeah, I haven't either, but, I mean, you don't wanna get into a delinquent status, you don't wanna, when after I had, my kids, I thought about going on inactive. You can change your license to be inactive, you know, and I don't really need to be licensed to work here, but I've always kept my license active, just, you know, for security reasons or whatever. And, I said, I'll go on inactive, and then it was almost harder to do that. You have to apply to be inactive, you have to pay an inactive fee. Then when you want to reactivate, you have to pay a reactivation fee. And then you have to prove that you did the continuing educations during the period you weren't. So I said, you know what, the heck with it.
Just 150 and.
I'll just pay my money and do the CEs. As Jonelle said, most of them can be done online at home. I did them while I was pregnant and I was done for and I just thought, I ain't gonna mess with that. And it just
That's
becomes-
just too much work.
yeah, it's just a lot of work. So, yeah, $150 each year, every 2 years. These are some of the states. Alabama, the licensure title, this is a common one, you'll see licensed professional counselor, LPC.
CPC, some states are certified.
Certified for, yeah. The AL is like associate licensed professional counselor, there's like 2 levels there in Georgia. And you can see that most of them have the 60 credit hours, which is the common K-CREP. 3,000 hours of supervised experience.
Wow.
Here, Georgia, 2 years. So they don't give a number, they just say 2 years.
2 years.
NPC is 3,000 with vacancy.
Connecticut,
3,000.
NC, or the NCMHC.
But let me tell you what, I looked up, for some reason, one time I looked up the licensure in Virginia, and it's not, there's not a lot of reciprocity for us.
No.
You have, when you get there, you may have to take their exam, even if it's, it was very strange, so if you do get licensed here, you go somewhere else, or you get licensed there.
And I was thinking about Texas for a little bit.
Don't think about Texas, look at this.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Here's what's very interesting though about Texas is, not only does everyone drive a Suburban, but it's a minimum of 48 semester hours. So right there, they have less pre-training and 300-hour practicum. You guys do 1,000 hours. So on this end, they say, they'll let you out there with that, but then look at the other end.
Yeah.
Got
Right.
3,000 hours
That's
after.
why, like, they don't do anything when they're in school.
So you have to take 2
Texas,
exams.
Texas jurisprudence is the Texas laws and rules, basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn,
Yeah.
that sounds terrible.
And
Yeah,
then,
because Texas, they do all types of stuff with their jurisdiction and their jury legal system. Yeah, I'm
So
sure
it's
they do
almost-
have a.
and they have 2 levels, the
That's what they-
LPC and the LPC.
Intern.
So you can see that, you know, graduating from a school there is less. However, those wouldn't be K-CREP, because K-CREP requires 60 credits.
Right, so they're, okay.
Yeah. So I just thought Texas was an interesting one. New York, and somebody, there was also a thing about New York, that you have to live in New York.
Really?
I'm sure
You
you
have to have a
So you
residence
can't come
in New
from
York.
I remember
Jersey.
when you talked about that
Oh, wow.
at CSI.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Alex, who did the research on this for us, found out that you had to be.
A resident, I think, is it a resident?
Wow.
Or-
Yeah, you basically had to have an address in New York.
Right.
So they don't want people who don't live in the state holding their license.
So you
When
from
a
Florida
real
can't
deal
just go and
Right.
drive.
If you have Jersey or Connecticut, drive up to the city.
Damn Jersey.
Yeah, Jay Road.
If you have the New York dream, it's not gonna happen.
That's right, so they're very
But it's
elitist.
Broadway.
And 3,000 hours, so. California, 3,000 hours and a California laws and ethics exam. So again, you see some states are requiring an exam in that. We're lucky we just take the class. Yeah. I don't know if we had, is that it?
Yeah.
You want to, can we get onto the internet here? Yeah. You are broke after you can see why Jonelle and I get along. So this is the, and right now it's only,
It's at 29.
Sorry, that was my bad.
every time you touch it.
I'm sorry. That's not only me. Is it gonna come back on?
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Don't say that, okay.
$29.
I took the free version.
Look, I'm at a
How
good
much you
start. I
pay?
got a good start. Oh, I think
How
for
much
2
you
years I
pay a
paid
year?
$40 or something.
$40?
So this is what it looks like, and so I can go to my records.
Look, good start.
Good start, 10% complete. Ooh, I got a long time, I just renewed.
So
Yeah,
there's
there's your
your-
next year. So this is what I currently
Oh,
have.
so you have to be done by next,
2015, yeah, so I'm not sweating. I already, that domestic violence came from here. See, I'm already done. See, this was required, if you look, how do I go back?
well, it says
Required
hours needed
Yes.
in red, yeah.
Exactly. But you can see, where that domestic violence doesn't show up there. It says, this is your selected biennium for the domestic violence requirement. Oh, every third one.
Yes.
So
This
now I
will
do it,
reset your
I don't have to
body.
take it for six years.
Wow.
Cool.
And I got that from your, we took, what do you know you did something?
We must have done a workshop here, yeah.
Also, that's another workshop.
Remember when we did the gifts, the taking gifts from clients? So I
So
ran
you can
that
see
as
what
a
I've done so
CE
far.
workshop.
Oh, so she-
And Dr.
So yeah, so I
McCaffrey
still
and
have
all that credit.
23 general hours. I
Right,
have.
Workshop.
But look, they consider that my professional
Yeah, yeah,
ethics. So I have
Because
one
it was
of my,
ethical.
exactly, I have one of my 3, so now,
Well,
see,
write down your.
that doesn't really benefit me because I still gonna have to get
We
3.
need a certificate.
You have to get 2 more.
Yeah,
Right.
but the most of them are gonna count for me.
We need
Where
a
do you get
certificate for that.
So she needs 23 in the general area to make a total of 30.
I think it's one up there.
So what they're saying are, these are the subject areas you absolutely have to get: medical errors, professional ethics boundaries, domestic violence, and then the rest can be general. Anything.
I'll go back to the year where I finished, you see, what I,
Oh, okay, so this
my
is
life. So
100.
this
Okay.
is all of the things
Wow.
that I
Oh,
took.
okay.
Look, there's your child abuse reporting.
Yeah, we did that change.
And then these are all ones that I took.
Oh, I didn't just keep
See,
track of
I-
everything.
the Greek-
Oh,
I took some of the courses that you will take, can count. I think that grief and loss was one of the courses I took, and I submitted it to the state of Florida. There is an option, if they're not a CE broker, provided you can send things in, you can self-report,
Okay.
and you have to send in.
Yes,
And see,
yeah.
that supervision theories and skills, that was 16.
That was the
So that was,
qualified
I was
supervisor.
like, that's it, I'm done now.
Oh, yeah, so you were good.
Yeah, because look, it right from my renewal, 3-2. I was so happy.
That's why we offered it right before the
That was
renewal
perfect.
period. Yeah. Resilience of military families, huh?
I thought that was interesting, you know. I can tell that substance abuse and.
So what Janelle's saying is she didn't have to enter this.
No.
Because she went to workshops, they automatically, when I enter the participants at a workshop, I enter their license number, the field populates, and it automatically goes into her CE broker.
And so then
So
you
it's
can
kinda
search
cool.
providers, you know, if you know,
Or content area.
or content area.
Yeah.
Let's see, search.
Why don't, can we search for an HIV one, for example?
Sure.
The HIV one you might go to would be for continuing education credits, even though you don't need the continuing education credits yet, that's how you could find the course, would be through CE broker.
I'm sorry.
I need to make sure it's gonna see that.
It doesn't sit well in that case.
So self-study.
So she wants a self-study as opposed to a live course. She doesn't want to go somewhere, she wants to do it at home. So this is the type. Oh, it doesn't have
Yeah, it doesn't have
HIV.
HIV.
Do you remember how many hours of hypnosis you need to be
No.
a therapist?
Too many.
40 hours.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it
It's
was
not.
like
Instruction.
I was looking at that
And
one,
the
then sex
website
therapy,
only
because I want to do
has
sex
So
therapy.
here's one.
So here's all the HIV courses.
And you click on
So
it.
you click on it, it'll tell you the price too, right?
I saw one
No,
that said free.
you have to look.
I saw one that said free.
Did it?
That's all I know.
Well, I just joined them.
That's free? Okay.
Rehabilitation organization.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that one may not count.
Oh,
So
no.
you have to
How
see.
do you have HIV in the rural south?
Oh, no. I-
Health Education Center.
They're like, no. take
But
it
you
away.
can, I wish I remember, I'll find the site.
Okay, but if you see under the
have
course
no idea
name,
what it does.
guys, it gives you the provider.
Yeah.
So that says affordable CEUs, affordable programs, ours says FIU.
Yes.
So
Oh,
we
okay.
get a lot of hits just because people are like, oh, that's gotta be reputable, you know, it's a university, it's,
Okay.
you know, yeah, gee.
How do you know if the hours would count or not?
Right, that's what I just asked.
Does it
What
tell
you
you?
were saying,
It's
like-
like-
If there's CE I said, my question is, I don't know if that would count towards that particular,
Oh.
towards that requirement. It's gonna count towards something.
Under
Just
general
say-
providers.
Oh,
So
it
it
It may not
going
be
to
the
like
Florida
general.
one.
Look,
right?
this is my favorite.
Okay.
You'd have to ask them, does this meet the Florida requirement for the
Okay.
HIV?
Consultants for the future. They sell, they're like $5 a CU or something. Listen, I know. And then they sell like a little bundle. And I do it online. Yeah, so I did I think they did my medical errors, I did with medical errors and ethics. Look, FIU, FIU, FIU,
Well,
FIU.
if we weren't taping, we could tell you about other websites too, but we're gonna.
Well, those are my favorites. And
I can pause.
Oh, so look, you guys,
Yeah,
so she got, see how they were all, these were submitted by FIU, these are
Right.
ones she took here and we submitted for her.
I remember taking them in here, and then this, I work for an
I
agency,
know.
and they give me access to this system, so I use Reliance. Oh, there's another one.
Yeah, that was during the grant.
Oh, this is
We
all
did
of
those.
my,
Ever, yeah.
yeah, this goes back pretty far, I have 2 pages of.
Being a continuing education provider like we are here in the department, we have to offer a certain number of workshops every 2 years. So that's why sometimes when we do those things like the gift giving, I'll turn it into a CU workshop because we have to document that we're being active and that we're, you know, so it works both ways. Like, you have to get them, but we also have to
Yeah,
provide them.
a lot of these are grant ones, the
Parent to safe children, yeah.
Oh, whatever, so it just has.
So do you guys have any, somewhere in this it says just for Florida and,
Oh, probably.
see, it says Florida
The
Health
homepage.
there, but I think on the homepage it talks about, I think it's Washington DC.
Can we find out?
And the CEUs.
Oh, Lord, yeah, because I think I
Yeah.
heard it.
I need this in my life. Can we find out Tennessee has one?
Well, not
Or
every,
CE broker.
not every state has, not every state has CE requirements.
That's true.
Yeah, look, health license in Florida, District
See,
Columbia,
District of
Wyoming,
Columbia?
Ohio.
Okay, right there. Yeah.
Okay, so,
I'm just gonna go back home, I guess.
you know what, I need to look for like Virginia and Maryland too.
Yeah.
Simply because if
You'll be
you
around.
get a house not in DC,
Right.
now I have to, I just thought.
It gets a little
That's why I'm saying.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we'll be
have
living in
a
DC for
friend,
the time
They
being,
usually
but
don't like the DMV work
I'm thinking
together,
about
like
that.
as far as when it comes to
they
licensure.
might, but they.
Yeah.
They may not with
Yeah.
licensure.
Right.
They
Yeah.
might, but they
Different
might
states,
have
it's same
different,
thing.
yeah.
the, actually,
You need to
the
know.
other part of this presentation, when I do it with Dr. McEachran, is about the reciprocity. And right now, states don't have reciprocity.
It's terrible.
So you move to a different state, and that's again, we have to meet the criteria or, you know, whatever. Now, I understand that Texas might want you to take their laws and rules. Understood. You're
Yeah.
moving there, you should be familiar with them. But you need to retake, you know,
Yeah.
or you need to get 1,000 more hours, or, you know,
That's
that's.
always.
So I have had friends move from state to state. I think I told you, and just go through, you know. Sometimes you could live in Georgia and practice in Florida. So you probably need to be licensed in the state you're practicing in.
Right.
So right now, no states, like,
Do reciprocity.
You just can't go over to, you know, Virginia and say, oh, I'm
Exactly,
here.
like DC.
Yeah, because like nurses and doctors,
Yeah.
a lot of them have just reciprocity,
Yeah,
like they
like
can
you
go
just
and
pay a
they.
little fee and then there you go.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting because I think the bar exam in New York covers New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. I think it's a tri-state
Mhm.
bar. But for that very reason, people often live within those
Yeah.
states and
Commute.
And it's like
commute.
that for
So I
Ohio too, it's
I'll
like,
pick that
if
up.
you pass the bar in Ohio, it's like all Midwest states you're good, cause it's so hard.
Wow.
Yeah, so all now, whatever,
Yeah,
you're
because
pretty
they might
much
share the
covered.
same bar, but
Which
not.
is, that's what kind of silly is, because you're taking a national exam.
Right, and that's what I
So
didn't understand.
logically-
So, like,
Insane, right?
everybody's taking this exam.
I mean,
so
we're
it's
taking
like,
one of the two, I mean, if that's the
Right.
case, take two, I mean, I'm willing to take two.
Right.
This service too, I think you can use it yourself to track your CEs. It's just that it's required in Florida and Washington DC. No?
You don't have to pay for it.
Right, I'm
Oh, you're
using the
saying-
free version, but I'm saying if they were in another state, you could still use this to kind of manage your CEs.
I'm not 100% sure. Yes, because I think you can self-report your CEUs.
Okay.
You'd probably have to call, you could call it.
I called them.
Even if it's not required.
It's not required, but it would be a good
It's like a
housing.
place for you to
Yeah,
have.
good storage.
Yeah, there's numbers and
toll
free.
Yeah, because that would make sense.
I actually, why don't we Google, continuing education credits in mental health, continuing education credits in Tennessee. I called them recently about something and they responded and walked me through the steps, you know, so. See, there's your $49.
Well, look, they have something, CE credit. It looks like it's more or less, oh, this may be a provider.
Something I'm.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's Tennessee professional.
Oh, it tells you what you have to do.
Okay, so the following, this is, counselors and psychotherapists. Well,
This is
Tennessee
they're
definitely
providing.
has some because it says
Right,
that
exactly.
it accepts it. Do you
We're
guys
looking
have any
for-
questions for Jonelle about the process or how her program helped prepare her for?
I passed everything the first time.
That is so good.
So did we took it together, we all.
Yay!
Oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
do that, I looked
Oh,
right.
Oh, you have to take this.
I have to take that. Excellent.
So hopefully we'll all pass the MC.
You will, you will. It's
Oh,
fine.
that's, was my question, can you take, because we were talking about taking the NCE.
Right.
Can you take the NCE before you graduate, or whatever the next date is, like?
Is that available here?
Well, we looked it up, but they're like
The
in
next one-
Tampa.
yeah, the one in
and-
Tampa,
Yeah,
then
but the next
Lauderdale.
one in August is at Fort Lauderdale.
Is in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, but we have to wait till.
See, the way I understood it is once you, I don't know, because in Florida, submitting your registered intern application would trigger that postcard to tell you to take it. So whether you could take it beforehand and bank it, I don't know. Now, there was a movement, CCE contacted me and said, would you like to offer it to your students, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we just didn't, we don't have the manpower to do it, but they were definitely pushing to give it to people right in their final year.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
So it must be applicable, or why else would they be asking us
Right.
to?
Yeah.
It was something about if you graduated from a K-CREP program, you were eligible to take it, you know. Maybe you didn't have to wait, so.
You're gonna take it in August, Mercedes?
Yeah, it's been October.
What are we planning
I read it from that, you know, this is
No,
what it
she
is.
never.
Crystal, you already got some information about that?
Yeah, I got for the NC from DC, because I was needing to look that up. And, it had something, do you remember we saw something that you have to apply like 4 to 6 weeks in advance, or
Oh, I'm sure,
something?
yeah.
You're looking for,
4 to 6 weeks in
I think it's 4 weeks.
Oh, before you did
Everything takes- everything, yeah,
Everything
everything
to
takes
be
time.
We gotta
clear,
train
and then I can submit.
Yeah, like in June.
Yeah, you're not gonna call them the night before and
Yeah,
say, hey,
tomorrow, I'm gonna take this
Yeah.
exam.
Right, like no.
yo,
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, so I was looking, so I think the earliest I could take is like June. Like after I
Yeah.
graduate, if we have to wait till after we graduate.
Exactly.
Well, because your degree has to post. That's also a waiting process.
And yeah, then you have to wait for
Because
that.
you have to wait for your
Yeah,
final transcripts to post your
that says that
graduation.
you've been confirmed.
That's true.
I get a lot of emails and phone calls about that.
Yeah, because you just have to
Where's my
wait.
degree? It's like you guys walk one night and the next day you're like, my degree
Yeah,
hasn't
it
posted.
takes a while.
It takes a period of time.
Yeah.
No, because your final grades have to go in.
It's a
and-
month.
Yeah,
it
it
takes
takes,
between
yeah.
a month.
Ah,
a
so
month and a
it
half.
might be
It
towards
starts
the end of the
June.
summer.
Now,
End of
if
the
you
year, okay,
need a
gotcha.
job, which I guess everyone does, we can generate a letter for you that
Yes.
says you've completed the requirements, waiting for the degree to post. You know,
Yeah,
something
Yeah,
like
and
that.
sometimes they'll take an unofficial.
Yeah, sometimes they will.
Extra unofficial transcript and everything.
Yeah.
Listen, most jobs aren't, I mean, they wanna know you have it, they'll take that unofficial just till you get your
Until you get the.
diploma, and then they'll say, we want a copy of it.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
That's why you just
We
keep
were
it,
looking
keep
it up and we were
renewing
just
it,
like-
keep
It's
renewing
like,
it.
I don't wanna look at this right now,
Right.
but yeah.
It is a lot of work, you know, I kind of liken it to like, It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, you know,
Right.
it's just, these are just
Doesn't hurt as
hurdles, but you'll eventually get, yeah, it doesn't, you know, you get through it, and then it becomes kind of rote, yeah, but I mean, my license is up now, I think, this year,
Yeah.
2014, so I just, the other day, you know, started to look through CE Broker, count up my credits, make sure I had everything. Oh, that was the thing I wanted to say, the state takes it very seriously that you notify them without a change of address.
Yes.
Because that's their way of communicating with you. For my license, I have my home address listed. That's not the address they publish on there. They put a practice address, they put a public address. You don't want I don't want my home address on that public website, you know,
Right.
because of clients, but, so there's a way you can signal this comes to my house, but this is my professional address. So in my case, it goes to my husband's office, you know. But that's the way if somebody makes a complaint about you, that the ethics board and the state contacts you. So you have a certain period of time to respond to an ethical complaint, and so if you have the wrong address down, guess what? You know, now you're not getting the letter that you
And
need
it's
to
still on
respond
you.
to.
Right,
So-
And it's still on you.
and they don't care, you know, so much like you're supposed to change your driver's license within the, you know,
Registration and everything.
all of that, get on that, you know, if you move addresses, notify them, I think I just had to send them a letter,
I
or
think
do
you
it
do it
online
online.
or something,
I
yeah.
believe you do it
change
online.
Okay.
But you want that in the system, because that's their way of auditing you. So let's say you're up for an audit, and you didn't get the notification, you're now non-compliant, you know?
Yep.
It's a lot harder to reinstate these things than to just kind of keep them going, you know? As Jonelle said, you use the continuing education workshops as an opportunity to add to she's added some great things, you know,
Yeah.
certified addictions, grief, military work. These are all things that you didn't really get in the program,
And not things that I
especially
do all the time.
Right.
I mean, the addictions I do, but the other stuff I don't really do a
I
lot
do
of
want
that.
to do the certified addiction.
Right.
You're gonna find,
Me
it's
too.
a great,
Yeah.
employers really like it. Right now, I'm not in working in mental health full-time, I work in the school system. Hoping to move over to more of a counseling position, I ended up kind of in a teaching position, to get into the system.
Right.
But it's worked out for me, I do a lot of stuff on the side with all this other stuff. But it is a nice thing, you know, because you're gonna work with students, you know, you have the grief, you have, you know, for the county, that's I'm hoping a good selling point for me.
Yeah.
You know, and with agencies, they're like, oh, addiction's great, because you're gonna find co-occurring that's it. Right now, I mean, it's,
How many of your clients have co-occurring substance abuse?
That's my
Oh,
entire.
That's, I mean, if you're with the
oh,
parents,
you got a high proportion, if you're working with a mentally ill, you have a high
other
population.
than probably the kids group, you guys, you know, it's.
Even then, you're still finding,
There might be
Well,
some
the children of alcoholics, or the.
you're finding a lot of
right.
substance issues within their
Yeah.
life, or exposure to substances.
Remember, our program is a generalist degree. You know, we touch on a little of everything. You get the cross-cultural, you get the ed voc, you get the human sexuality, but you get one class in substance abuse. You know, you need more than that. So we've also had people go on to become the certified sex therapist.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a guy do that while he was in the program.
Really?
Yes, because it's not dependent.
Yeah,
on
that's what I
being-
said, that's what I wanted to
You want to do that? Yeah, it's not dependent on being licensed.
do. Right.
It's simply demonstrating that you've taken, there's 10 or 14 areas and you have to take 10
Mhm.
hours in each
In
one of them.
It's like, you have to
Oh,
really,
okay.
you have to do individual, and then you have to do like lecture.
Mhm.
They got it broken down, and then once you
And
do
you
all
have to
that,
be
you sign-
supervised
Yeah,
for a
during
certain
all
period of
that.
time working
Mhm.
with couples or people with sexual difficulties. So that one's a little bit more intense, but those could also be your CE workshops.
Mhm.
Right.
So again, it's kind of double dipping, use those, you're gaining skills and you're adding a
And if you
certification.
take another master's level class or something, you can, generally that counts as C.
This class would count, it's, let's say a class meets, each hour counts as an hour of continuing education. So one class that meets for 16 weeks, for 2 hours a week, that'd be all your CEs. And I'm supposed to get CEs for teaching a class, but I never record them.
You better record them.
Oh, you know what, I'd just rather go to the workshops myself,
Right.
You can
But
also
you can get over, can't you?
You
get
can go
more,
more,
yeah, get more.
I'm supposed to be at 40 for this biennium, and I think I'm at 68, and it's January.
Yeah, and when you work in the, agencies and stuff,
easy.
if they're providers, they send you to, when you look way back when I was doing substance abuse mental health full time,
They send
Yeah.
I went to trainings on gambling and then trainings on addictions and trainings on a bazillion things. Now I have to seek them out a little bit more because it's not what I do full time, so, which is cool.
I like to read books, and then I take a test on the book. That's another way to get continuing
Yes.
education credit.
Mhm.
So you'll purchase the book through ACA or APA, and then they give you a
Yeah, like a home
test.
study, yeah.
And
A home study, and you can be looking at the end.
There's other
Yeah,
ones too where you can order like little catalogs and it's a bunch of little articles,
yeah,
research and stuff, and you can take a test on that.
or video, yeah. So sometimes I'll, then the book becomes a reference for you.
Yeah, because I just joined the International Association for Rehabilitation Professionals, and they sent us like these videos and it counts as one CEU after you watch it.
Actually, I just
Good
renewed my American Counseling Association membership. I don't know why, sometimes I just forget and let it go. But I renewed it and they give you a free CEU a month.
For doing what?
Just, did you have to go and do the CEU? But they offer it for free, so
Oh.
every
Yeah,
month
we
I
can
can get
email
one
you.
free
Yeah, I
CEU.
give you.
I just got an email, you're free, I'm like, oh, I'll do it, why not? One,
I also
you know.
signed up for one free CEU Tuesday. So every Tuesday they send me a video to watch and get free CEU Tuesday. Yeah.
That's cool.
Otherwise, it can add up,
Yeah, no,
Now, if you're gonna go see somebody like, I saw that like Donald Meikenbaum was coming, that workshop's $300, so.
Yeah, some of you
It
really
might
want
be
to
worth
go
it,
to,
but,
yeah.
that's a lot of money when you're talking about getting all of them for
Yeah,
$74.
sometimes you work for
Right,
they send you to
exactly,
conferences
everything
and you
for
sit in all the little, especially FADA, which is the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association, Florida, you go to sit in 20 workshops and boom, 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 you're accruing your credits like this. And then some of them work for me for both of them. I have some that I print out a certificate for mental health and I print out for MHC and I print out for CAP. And then,
So with CAP, you have to get.
yeah, 30,
continuing
I think, every
education
year.
credits As well.
Yeah, 20
That's-
20
and
every
So
year.
30 for CAP and then.
No, I think it's 20 every year and then every 2
30
years
for
for
mental
mental health.
health.
So it's 20 every
Okay.
year for CAP and then 30 for my mental health counseling. Sometimes they overlap. And then grief counseling, I just have to practice
They
grief
have
counseling.
And also, if you become an NBCC,
NBCC.
a National Board Certified Counselor, I have that, I'm supposed to get X amount of credits for that.
For that as
For just having it or get it for, like, CUs for them
I'm
to
supposed to
maintain that.
be doing that.
well. I was
Yeah,
actually
she's
seeing
the other
those.
doing that.
It's on an,
Uh,
honors.
It's on the other side. But you had 68, you're doing it.
But you have
NBCC
ones.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
The
Yes,
honor
they are.
system, yes.
Listen, if you're willing to go through that process, not that it's a big process, but if you're willing to sign up for all that stuff,
I'm sure
they
you
gotta
can
give you.
Yeah.
wiggle room.
So any other questions for Jonelle? So usually at this point, you're either like sort of elated and excited because you feel like, wow, the
Or you're
end
like,
is near, or you're like, oh, man.
It just
No,
started,
right.
right?
It's just getting
That's
like blown away.
Right, it just started. Now I'm not so eager to run across the stage.
Oh, I have one more.
So glad I have this summer practicum coming up, because
It'd be like Mercedes Brian. You're saying that.
Like, no,
not yet, I'm doing. They're gonna be pulling up, they're like, what's wrong with
After we
you?
graduate,
Yes.
then we have to start getting our CUs.
No.
After licensure.
No.
Not
So
to
after
That's
the
just
licensure. So while we're intern,
Work on those
We
ones,
just have to get to
the HIV,
Yeah, and then that's
if your state requires those.
okay.
Florida,
But you don't have to have those 20.
And you
30.
can you? This is just throwing it out there, being an overachiever, I guess. Can you bank them? Like, can you get CEUs and then
Has to
have?
be.
It has to be within
It has
that
to be
period, so
during
from
that
April
2-year
1st,
period.
like for
Okay.
me, it'll be April 1st, 2015 till March 31st, 2017.
Yeah.
Okay, and
It
then
has
that
to be with
time
us.
is when you have to get them.
You can't just hold on to
Get
them
them
and.
in 2014.
Yeah,
You're like,
there's-
I
No.
got.
Like these before.
You're like, whoa, here's $1,000.
Yeah.
And then just throw them. Okay.
Yeah,
so-
And they're dated and
Yeah,
they're
they're dated,
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember.
I mean, it makes sense, they want you.
Yeah,
The idea is,
right.
it should be
Like changing
continuing.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like hold on to what you did.
Yeah, like you,
Okay.
And this year I'm just not gonna do nothing, like, you can't.
It's like I'm
Just gonna
set.
sit at home
years ago.
and go to work. You never set.
Did that 2 years ago.
Right.
Like, pull one of those out of my file.
Boom, from 1999. Yeah, I can do it.
I send it back like,
Right.
I know.
Girl, you wasn't even licensed.
No, it's 2017.
Right.
We won't
We
accept
will not
it.
take this.
You have the stuff for DC, you feel comfortable with the,
Yeah, it's just a lot. I got the, let me see. Registration is 4 weeks in advance, I remember that. Oh, this, we got this application, but I believe I might have printed off the wrong one. It's just new license. So I don't think I printed off the right one.
you might be, there may not be an intern process in DC.
Yeah, there may not be.
Oh, that's true.
Florida only
I
moves
still have
the
to do
registered
the
intern.
3,000.
I know, and I've had it forever.
Right.
And let me
But
tell you,
I might just go straight. Oh,
call
okay.
their department, whoever the Department
Yeah,
of Health who
I'll
does ours is very, respond to
That's
emails.
Yeah.
I've actually spoken with people there, they're very responsive. I have not had a problem with anything with the Department of Health regarding questions questions I have. They answer almost immediately. Like, I thought that was great, like, you didn't expect that from the state.
Yeah, because I know I've already emailed someone, but she just referred me back to the site. I was like, well,
Yeah.
I was on the site.
Obviously, but
I was
it's
on,
on it.
like, I was on the site.
I
I
would
saw
email
this,
you.
and that's why I'm emailing you because I had a question about it. Go to the site. Never mind. Don't go to the site. But yeah, that's where I found.
Let's
the
thank
3,000
Jonelle for coming.
Thank
you very much.
I hope it helps.
And
Thank
that will
Thank you.
formally end our session for the evening.